Every once in a rare while, I encounter a person who has had so many deep and varied experiences that I just have to share them with you. My gift to you is the Reverend Kathy Chapey. She tells the story of her out of body experiences, meeting with guides, the deceased, divine beings, angels, ETs, and sacred persons. As it turns out, I'm fairly silent in this interview, just fascinated with the broad range of experiences she brings to us. With all this interdimensional wisdom, I reserve time at the end of the interview to ask questions about ascension and the future of the human race. That was fun. Here is her bio. The Reverend Kathy Chapey is an ordained inner spiritual minister, counselor, medium, healer, and trance channel for the Council of Light. Catherine has had many different types of spiritually transformative experiences throughout her lifetime, including near death experiences, shared death experiences, and other interdimensional contacts. Her encounters are all loving reminders that they're here, they love us, we are never alone, and we are one. You can join Catherine as she facilitates any of her 5 monthly groups. She also has 3 YouTube channels. All the details and descriptions can be found on her website, which is listed in the interview description. A side note, if you like the content of this channel, please like and subscribe. It helps everyone, and my thanks in advance for that. In addition, please visit neardeathmeditations.com to see a complete list of my guided meditation albums and online courses. Here is our interview with Catherine Chapey. Hi, Catherine. It's so good of you to come and be with us here on the Afterlife Files.
Hi, Scott. Thank you so much for having me.
I have been really looking forward to this conversation. So, yay, I'm like double pleased.
I've been looking forward to it too.
So, Catherine, please start us off with how you got into this work and why are you doing what you do?
Oh, well, where to begin? um, so I guess when I look back at my life, I actually was born premature, 2 months premature, and I was in an incubator for the first month or so of my life. And over time, I didn't know this right away, but through my journey, through my spiritual journey, I learned through my higher guidance that I was never alone during that time. Nobody could hold me during that month. My mother and father were not allowed to hold me. And so my guidance told me that I was actually out of body and with them during that time, so that I was never really alone. So that's how I started in my journey. And I had a lot of experiences as a kid where, and I won't go into all of them, but a lot of experiences that taught me that I'm not just this body, that I'm not just this physical form. And so I was raised in a religious family that went to church every Sunday, and we were told that we were going to church so that we wouldn't go to hell. Okay. Ooh. And there was a lot of dogma that was taught to us. We were told constantly about hell and the devil, and that if we were bad, we would go to hell. And there were different types of hell. Some were you could never get out. So there was a lot of fear, at an early age. So I thought the devil lived under my bed. I used to jump off my bed, and because I thought the devil was going to grab me and pull me under. And I had an experience a few times when I was a kid where I woke up and I was frozen. My body was frozen. Sure. And I felt a presence right next to me, like breathing in my ear. Okay. And it was a male presence. I knew that. I didn't see it, but I knew it. And all I could think of is it's the devil. It's the devil, right? Um, and I tried to scream, nothing would come out, right? And then when I made the tiniest little sound, I would pop back in. I was able to move. And then later in life, I found out that's sleep paralysis. Because when we're sleeping, our body goes into a paralysis state, so we're not acting out our dreams. But in my mind, I was so fearful, right, because of what I had been taught as a young child. And so my mind automatically went to the negative aspects and thought that it was something bad or harmful. That happened to me a few times as a kid. And then I also had an experience as a kid where I had almost died from baby aspirin, being a whole bottle of baby aspirin fed to me. And another time I was with a bunch of kids and we learned about this stupid technique where you breathe really heavy and deep, and then the kid comes up behind, and please don't do this. Please do not do this at home. Okay. It's very dangerous. But the kid would come up behind you and give you like almost like a Heimlich. They would go in and up, and then you pass out, right? So I passed out and I was in another realm. I was gone. I was like, and it
Really?
felt
I've
like I was,
never heard of this. This is,
yeah, yeah.
uh,
I don't know who found out what brain, what genius found out about that as a kid, but we all tried it and I passed out, which what felt like hours to me. And the kids told me that I was out for about 20 seconds. But anyway, I can go on and on about all the different things. And then one other thing I'll bring up is that as a kid I grew up in a very violent home. Okay, and at one time I was being attacked, chased, and I ran into my bathroom and I shut the door and locked it. And the abuser was pounding on the door and wanting to get to me. And so I was so scared because I'm thinking, okay, if I unlock the door and let him in, he's going to beat the crap out of me. But if I leave the door locked and stay in here, it's going to be even worse once he kicks the door in, right? So I'm like this with my hand on the doorknob. Next thing I know, I don't know if I unlock the door because I don't remember that. But next thing I know, I'm above in the corner of the bathroom and I'm looking down as he's beating the hell out of me. And I don't have any memory of the physical, like feeling that physical pain because I was watching from above. And I never realized what that was because I always had that memory from above. Um,
mhm.
until I started to go to the IANS sharing groups and I was hearing different stories, of the different experiences that people had. And another time in my life where I was threatened again, and I viewed it all from above, out of my body. And then I could name every single person in the room. So these are different things that happen, in my life where, I guess my consciousness just can pop out and and watch from that angle if I feel threatened. So my life went on, and then as a young adult, I was raising children. I was working in a male-dominated field, and there was a gentleman who I was friendly with, and he was an older gentleman, and he was a foreman on the job that I worked on, and he committed suicide. Okay. And
Hmm.
he ended up back at the place where we were working. We were working in a hospital at the time. And the way he killed himself was absolutely horrific. And so I remember he came to me in a dream shortly after, and he was beaming. He was so happy, and he looked younger. And he said, "Don't worry about me. I'm fine. I'm fine." He had kids that he left. They were just, getting out of college and high school. And I was glad to see that he was okay. And then I think it was like, oh, I'm sorry. Then the next day I went into work and I was so excited that I told the guys on the job, I said, "Oh, I had a dream about so and so." And they all laughed and said, "Oh, you mean?" And they made fun of the way he died. And then they all laughed. And I thought, that is horrible. You people are horrible, so two-faced. because they were acting all sad at his memorial, but yet making fun of him, and thinking behind his back. Well, I was telling somebody about this at a diner. We were just getting ready we were leaving the diner. I was standing there on the right outside the door of the diner, and I was telling her about what happened with this gentleman and how the guys were laughing at him, right? And as I was saying it, he walked right in front of me. There was a group of people, and there he was. He looked as solid as everybody else in that group of people. And he looked over at me, and because I kept going like this as I'm telling the story, and I'm like, and oh my God, and oh my God, there he is. Wait a minute. I'm trying to figure it out. How can he be deceased? But there he is. He's as solid as everybody else, right? So that was like the turning point for me because I got really curious about my own mediumship at the time because I was having a lot of those kind of experiences where I would see spirit or I would smell my grandfather's cigar as I was talking about him and there was nobody smoking a cigar, different things, the dream state visitations. So I started to look online. I felt like I wanted to go to like a spiritual type community where, not community, but like a spiritual, I don't know, meeting of some sort. But I knew I didn't want to go to a religion. Like I didn't want to go back to a church, but I wanted to know if there was like any spiritual communities out there that were meeting regularly that I can be involved in. And so I just Googled spiritual events, in my local area, and the name spiritual church or spiritualism church came up. And so I looked at it and I was like, oh, that looks interesting. Well, as synchronicity would have it, that very day, a friend of mine who knew nothing of what I was going through called me up and she said, oh my God, Catherine, I just went to this place and I kept thinking of you the whole time. I think you would love it. She says, it's a spiritualist church and it's not too far from you. And she goes, it's all about the golden rule. There's no dogma. She said everybody's equal. There are female ministers and male ministers, and she said, and they really talk about, they talk about personal responsibility and the laws of life, right? The spiritual laws of life. And she said, and there are mediums that give messages to the people in the congregation. And they always have, a minister that gives uplifting spiritual messages. So I said, all right, I'm going to go. So I went that Sunday and the place was packed. And there was a couple they were both mediums and they were both ministers and they were visiting from Massachusetts, right? So the woman got up, the woman minister, and she was going to, start her mediumship. And there was standing room only in the place. So I was all the way in the back. And she says, I don't have my glasses on, but the lady all the way in the back with the pink shirt on, she says, can I come to you with a message? So I said, yeah. So she says, I have your grandfather here. And she describes my grandfather. She describes some of our last moments together. My grandpa was 99 when he died. And she described some of our what we had talked about right before he died and what he was like. And so I knew she had him. She gave evidential mediumship to me. And then she said to me, excuse me, your grandfather wants me to tell you, he says, don't pray to me, meaning don't pray to him. And I thought, what? And then I realized, oh my God, he must have heard me. I was in my backyard the week before and I was talking to him in my head. Now, he had just passed about a year before. And I was just talking to him in my head and I was asking him for help with one of my children who was really having quite a bit of struggles. And I kept hitting, slam door after slam door with her. And I was heartbroken. and worried, worried for her. So I figured, okay, Grandpa, you're over there now. Please, you see what's going on. You see the bigger picture. So I would be talking to him and saying, "Can you please help with her?" and blah blah blah. And now here he is giving me the message through the medium, not to pray to him, go right to God. So that's what I started to do. And I started to really, I mean, I had prayed to God previously, but I really started to pray to God. But I also would include my grandpa because I knew he was part of my team over there. And I would do automatic writing with him and my grandmother, and they would come through. So shortly after that, door after door after door started opening for my child, and all of this help came in, and it was like I would meet the right person at the right time, and just boom 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 boom, it was like dominoes. So I got really excited about that and thought, wow, I wish everybody could know that we all have help. Right? We all have help. We're not here all alone, just struggling and getting through this life. And so I really wanted to give to others what I had learned. So I sat in on circle every week at the spiritualist church to develop my mediumship and my healing abilities so I could help other people in that way so that they could also learn that they're not alone, right? And so once I started to sit in circle every week, we started to meditate and go within and ask for um, the spirit world to come through. And I had an amazing mediumship teacher, and thank God for that because he really knew how to help us to, get strong links and also to bring in messages for the highest and best and evidential messages, not messages that are just kind of, wishy-washy, right? So slowly but surely, and at first I thought I was never going to be able to learn how to quiet my mind because I had a very strong monkey mind at the time. But, he did guided meditations, and I felt that that really helped me to learn to quiet my mind and to go within. And shortly after that, we would ask to meet our spirit guides, right? And the first time I saw my spirit guide's foot, and the end of her robe. I just saw the end of her robe and a foot. And at the time, I was all excited. I'm like, oh, I saw my spirit guide's foot. I mean, I wasn't disappointed that I didn't see the whole. I just was, this is what they were showing me, and I was happy. But little by little, I would go home. I would also meditate, and I shortly after that, and this happened relatively quickly, okay? So I would ask to meet my spirit guides. And one night I was just saying, I really want to meet you guys. And then one morning, as I was waking up, I started to see them one after another, after another, after another. And now I want to back up a little bit because prior to that, because this is like a two-part awakening that I had. Prior to that, I had been in the church, and it was during a service where we were going through a meditation because they would bring in a meditation during the service. And we did this meditation where we would go to each one of the chakras in our body and go all the way up. And then when we would get to the crown, to picture a beautiful flower, right, opening up. So I pictured the beautiful flower on top of my head and then ask, anything that you want. And this piece of me that was like inside my soul just came out and just said, I want to know you, God. And then as soon as I said that, it was like almost like a switch went off because I started to have all of these experiences where they were taking me out of body at night when I was sleeping, like between 3 and 4 in the morning. And I was being taken into the cosmos. My walls would disappear and I was out and I was seeing where the angels were coming out of the portals. I was in different areas of the cosmos where I was seeing this opening in the heavens and I couldn't go any further. I was with my guides, but I didn't know who they were at the time. I knew they were with me, and I knew I could not go any further or I wouldn't be able to come back. But all I felt was this love and this oneness. And at that time, I was also having these unitive experiences with with the trees on my property. I felt like I was one with the trees, my Leland cypress trees. And I also felt like I was one with the ocean and one with the sand. There was all of these different things that were happening, right? And at one point, I felt like I knew the answers to everything, right? But I did was not able to retain that, unfortunately. Okay.
What? That just doesn't seem fair.
I know. I know. But yeah, it was and the only way I can describe it, because I remember I felt like I was reborn. I felt like I don't even know how like realizing, oh my God, this is what it's like to feel like I'm reborn, because I felt like I was told, like my whole way of understanding who I am and what I am here is not really true. Like that, because that reality was so much more true than this reality.
So you had a real awakening with the chakra meditation, and you
Yeah.
said there was a second one subsequent to that.
Yeah.
That was the guides around your bed.
Yeah,
Or
that one came after, but it was shortly after, because one happened in November of 2007. So that was like where, we did that meditation and I had all of those experiences. But then in February, I was asking to meet my guides. And then, before I went to sleep, I was asking to meet them. And then in the morning is when they started to appear to me. And my body, now this is it was so intense, okay, but it was so loving that I was so delighted because they were smiling at me, like, and each one was coming in, like, in front of me. I could see their face, and then all of a sudden their face would turn and it would turn into another face, and then another face, and then another face. And my body was going into these spontaneous yoga positions, gentle yoga, okay? Because I don't do yoga in this life. Wish I did, but I wasn't. I didn't. And but my body just knew to go into these different poses. And there was a light in my room, in the corner of my room, and there was also at one point I was off of my bed and now I'm standing in my room, and um I went to touch the bed, right? The wood on the sleigh bed, and all of this light just poured out of my hand, right? And I kind of went, whoa, like that. And then I felt the energy kind of recede because I got a little nervous, but then I just said, okay, just let go, it's fine, right? And then the energy continued. And at one point I looked over at my bed, and my cat, believe it or not, was doing this almost like cat yoga positions also. And I just remember thinking, wow, little guy's really into this energy too, right? Now, then it dawned on me, little guy he's a little orange tabby cat with a little tuxedo chest, and he had been sleeping above my head, curled up like this for probably the past year. And I remember being hit with the knowing that he was protecting my crown chakra, that he was one of the protectors of me, right? Because I guess he knew I was going to go through this awakening, okay? As crazy as that sounds. But then I started to have contact with these different guides that were in front of me. Yeah.
so these guides, I'm assuming they imparted information, insights, wisdom to you. Um, did you ask? Did they just spontaneously give it to you? How did that work?
Yeah. Well, at a certain point, and it's hard to put it all into words because most of me was in the other realm. Okay. This experience was, it's hard to put it into physical context, but I'm going to do the best I can. There was a particular guy that was in front of me, and he looked like an elephant. Okay. He was like an elephant. Okay. And I remember seeing him, like, and I was there was no fear at all. I was in total bliss and love, and I was feeling the love of God in me, through me. And I mean, it was infinite, this love, okay? And so there was no part of me that felt any fear, and there was no part of me that was left braining any of this. I wasn't trying to analyze it. I wasn't trying to figure it out, and I wasn't trying to get at anything, right? I was just allowing. So this elephant guide that was in front of me was, I felt that I was being down, like there were downloads that were pouring into my essence. And at one point I felt his trunk growing out of me. So as I'm looking at him, I'm also feeling like I am him, right? And I feel his trunk growing out of me, and I see it like come up like this. And then I was seeing all these different symbols, like there were golden scrolls, there was Tutankhamun's, the mask of Tutankhamun. And I felt as when I saw that I had done this before. There was a familiarity about this experience. So then there were other guides that came in, and they were showing me that I had two main guides, all right? And they were kind of preparing me to meet with my two main guides, right? And then that's when I saw Mother Mary and Jesus. And now, as soon as they came in, my essence, my body, or who I am, went into a little child. Okay, so I was no longer this physical form. I was automatically a small child in front of them. And I just remember bowing in front of Jesus. And there was also a light in my room that was in the corner. And my at one point I was bowing on the floor to the light. Um, And it also was in my closet, which is strange, but it was in my walk-in closet at a certain point, and I was bowing.
The
Yes.
sacred garments, yes.
Yeah, it was very intense. But then what happened was my guides, they formed a circle around me, and I was, again, I turned into a little 2-year-old, and I was on this almost like this rubbery stuff. It almost felt like a trampoline. And it was like a trampoline, but they were holding up, it was like a garment that they were holding up, and it was rubbery. And I was this little child jumping up and down, right? And going really high in the air. And I remember I was looking down, I can see them all around in a circle looking up at me. I could see each one of their faces as they were just beaming all of this love at me and enjoying me being my true self, this little child trusting them, right? With holding up this fabric as I'm just going crazy up and down. So all of these different things were happening. And then at one point, Mother Mary was channeling through me. And she was talking about how when we're born, we are so innocent, right? But we're pure souls that have all of the wisdom of the universe inside of us. And that we're so connected to God at that point when we are babies, right? And then when we come into this earthly realm, over time we forget who we are. And then we start to have different experiences that are taught to us as young people. And then, as adults, some of us try to find our way back to who we truly are. So that was some of the messaging that she was giving me. And her voice was so beautiful. And she had this accent that was Middle Eastern. And I remember a couple weeks after that, I met this lady and I said, "Oh my God, your accent's so beautiful." It reminded me of Mother Mary's, but I didn't tell her that. And I said, "Where are you from?" And she said, "Oh, I'm from Iran." And she was hesitant to tell me that, but she said, "Yeah, I'm from Iran." Now that was almost 20 years ago when I had that awakening. So, yeah, so after that, what happened was there was a being that was working with me very intensely for hours and hours. Now, this is still during the same morning, right? But now we're going into like the middle of the day and everything, because this went on for hours. It's very intense, but very loving. And this being that was with me, um, working with me for hours was also very loving and very intense. And the only thing about him was I felt like he wasn't from here. I felt like he was from somewhere else. And he knew everything about me, knew everything about me. And he was downloading all of this information, but it wasn't like information where, it's a linear information or, you have to, write it down. It was just being downloaded into my heart. And there were certain things that I had to remember. I felt like I was going to be tested after this experience with him. And because they wanted me to always remember this. And so he stayed with me, like I said, for hours and hours. And then after that, the
We talking
people,
human form or energetic form?
uh, telepathic. I could feel everything he was thinking or saying, and he could feel everything I was thinking and saying.
Got it.
But yeah, but it, like I said, he was very intense and very knowing. So a year later, I was still like every day I would think about this experience because once you have an experience like this, you think about it a lot, right? And I'm like thinking about it. I'm like, who was that? Who was that guy? And I talked to a friend of mine who was a contactee at the time, and he was like, he said, "Well, why don't you just ask before you go to sleep?" And I'm like, "That's a really good idea. Why didn't I think of that?"
Why not? Yeah.
Yeah.
You could have had a V8. Yeah.
So before I went to sleep that night, and it was a year later, I asked who are you? I said, I know, everybody, all the other guides I knew from different periods in history or from different religious, they were different religious people. But this particular guide, I didn't see him, so I didn't know who he was, and he didn't tell me. So that next morning, as I was waking up, in my mind's eye, I see a disc. It's like an oblong disc, and it has golden windows all along it, right? And it's coming in and out of this reality. So I knew it was interdimensional. And also there was a Merkaba over it, right? Now the Merkaba is the triangle inside of a triangle. One is turned up, one is turned down, and they spin in different directions. So I knew that was an interdimensional ship, right? So then above the ship in big letters, it said Metatron.
Oh
And
my.
so I had heard of Metatron before, but I never really knew details about him, right? So of course, I got up and I Googled Metatron, and then I learned a little bit about him and that he was one of two archangels who were once embodied, who were once in human form. And he is the scribe for God. He's also he's in charge of the Akashic records, and he also is he's what else? Oh, he also has Metatron's cube, which are all of everything in creation, I guess. I don't know the scientific terms for all of it, but yeah, it's if you look at Metatron's cube, it encompasses everything that is in the universe, all the different forms, but the flower of life. Um, so that made sense to me because he was, like I said, very intense, very loving, and he knew everything about me. And he was preparing me. He was preparing me for, he was part of my awakening, and I call it a an awakening because I woke up. I woke up to the true reality, and I remember at certain points I was like, oh my God, because I was just so filled with all of this love and oneness with God. And I just kept saying, this is who I am. This is who I truly am. I'm never, I'm always going to be this way. I'm always going to stay like this. But little by little, when I came back down to earth, it was like, womp, womp, womp. And now I'm back, you know? And then yeah. And
Nice job on the sound effects.
yeah, yeah, that's kind of what it felt like too. But I really got a sense of, during my awakening, Mother Mary was, bringing in different people in my life, and I could feel the frequency difference in between her and then the people that she was showing me, and I'm like, wow, you could feel the density, and then realizing the density of this earth and how we are such brave souls to come here. But yeah, they really they gave me a really good one, a really good awakening. So, and shortly after that, I started to see different types of beings in my meditations. And the beings that I saw were feline beings. And they were not human, they were not cats because they were tall and they had feline features, and they were wearing robes, right?
Mm.
And I thought that, wow, that's interesting, And then I talked to the same friend at the time, and he said, "Oh yeah, yeah, they're the feline beings. I've seen them." So always just very curious, and not there was never any fear or anything around any of these experiences. But I stayed in the spiritualist church for many years, for about 8 or 9 years, and I developed my mediumship. I gave messages every Sunday at the podium, or a lot of Sundays that anytime I could. And then I would do healing, hands-on healing. I thought I was going to become a spiritualist minister, but that didn't end up happening. I ended up becoming an interspiritual minister, which I think was more appropriate for what I'm doing now in my life. My guides kind of guided me to that instead of doing the spiritualist.
So, what is it now that you are particularly paying attention to? Your work at the moment.
Yeah, well, right now I run 4 groups I've been doing since 2016, and one of them is called UFO ET Experiencers. But that started in 2016 after I started to have a lot of UFO ET contact. And that's kind of where, I mean, do you want me to go into what I'm doing now, or do you want me to kind of tell you how that happened and then go into?
Um, let's see if it would it be instructive for people who are interested to do this that they could follow your path.
Uh, Yeah, I think so. People that have an interest in this, I think, yeah, they could, because
Yeah,
once we,
yeah. Well, then lay it on us.
okay, all right. So, so I ended up leaving the spiritualist church because there was things that were going on there behind the scenes that I was not resonating with, and so I left. And I remember I felt really like I had failed at my mission, right? Because what my guides had told me during my awakening is that I was going to be helping people that were waking up, and that a lot of people would be waking up, and they would be having all kinds of spiritual experiences. And they told me that especially in this part of the world, that people that are having these kinds of spiritual experiences are often told that they are going crazy, that they need to be on medication, that they're having psychosis, that there's something wrong with them. So they wanted to prepare me for, and they weren't going to show me everything because you wouldn't give a baby a steak. And at the time, I had a lot of fear about, that's what Dolores Cannon used to always say. At the time, I had a lot of fear about public speaking. And so they knew that I had some work to do, right? So they didn't want to tell me, "Oh, you're going to be, working with groups, and you're going to be, talking on YouTube, and you're going to," right? Because I would have been like, I'm gonna. But they would just tell me, "You're going to be working with people, and you're going to be helping people that are waking up." And they said the whole world is eventually going to be waking up, that we're going through an ascension process, which I knew nothing about. And they said the whole world is going to be ascending eventually. And I said, "The whole world? Are you sure?" And they said, "Yes, eventually everyone." And I said, "Even my ex-husband?" And they said, "Yes, even your ex-husband." I said, "Well, this is big." And anyway, so that was back in 2008. And over the years, things have People are waking up. You know, it may not seem that way now with everything that's going on in the world and what we're seeing on TV and everything else, but um,
It's
people are
all
waking.
part of the ascension process.
Right. So I started to have a lot of when I once I left the spiritualist church in 2015. Shortly after that, my guide, Mother Mary, said to me, because I remember I was so sad and depressed, and I'm thinking I failed at my mission, right? And she said, "No, no, that was just that was part of your schooling." She goes, "You're going to be moving on, and you're going to be stepping into your full potential." And I'm like, "What? What are you talking about? Nobody's here. I don't know what you mean." Like to me, I felt like they were the spiritualist church I was involved. I was there for many years. It felt like family to me. So it was really hard for me to leave, you know, but I knew it wasn't right. I knew it wasn't right for me. And so I had to go. So I was kind of dealing with different things emotionally, but she just said, don't worry, you know, you're exactly where you're meant to be. And you're going to be moving on. And that was part of your education. So shortly after that, I started to have all of these experiences with these different beings that were first showing up in my mind's eye. And they were the felines, were the first ones that started to show up. And through all these experiences, I won't go into the whole story now, but I felt compelled to go outside and take pictures. One night, shortly after I was started to channel a collective, okay? And I was feeling all of this buzzing and love in my heart anytime that these beings were around me. And so I went outside, I took 4 pictures from left to right on my patio and one video from left to right. And I went inside and I opened up the, you know, the video and the pictures. And I noticed that there was this tube of light that was kind of floating in my backyard. And then there was a column of light that came down from the heavens in the video. Or no, not in the video, in one of the pictures. But then when I looked at the video, where that column of light was that was coming down from the heavens, there was like this little thing that like popped out really fast. And now I slowed it down and I looked at it frame by frame, and it looked like this golden disc that was moving across. And at one of the frames, there was like this green orb that popped up. Okay. Now, prior to that, I had an experience where Mother Mary was in my room as I was sleeping. I woke up to her and she was holding my crystal that I had on my nightstand. And she wanted me to put it on my altar and have it point towards my crown chakra. So that's what I did. I went back to sleep. And as I woke up in the morning, I was seeing this beautiful white feline being. Okay, beautiful. And I just kept saying, oh, thank you, thank you. And she felt like this divine mother energy. Um, and so when I saw this film of this little green thing above it, I started to ask my guides later that day when I was on the acupuncture table. And I said, what was that golden disc that flew out of that column of light? And they go, that was us. Did you like that? And I said, yeah. I go, well, what was that green disc? I mean, that green orb that popped up. And they said that was the white feline being in that orb. And I said, no way. And they go, yeah, when you go home, pull it up on your phone and enlarge it, and you'll see the white feline in there. And so I did. I went home, I pulled it up on my phone and I enlarged it, and then I screenshotted it, and it was 111, which all these numbers were coming in at that time, these synchronistic numbers like 111, 444. I mean, it's just nonstop with all these things. But that's kind of how things opened up for me. And then these at night, all these UFOs were flying over my house. I was able to film them. There were the green orbs in my trees, and there were all kinds of synchronicities around these green orbs. All kinds of different beings started to introduce themselves to me. And what I was being made aware of is that I have a lineage with them, that they are part of me and I'm part of them, that they are me, I am them. And I've had lifetimes as them, right? Different ones. And so yeah, it goes on and on. So yeah.
I am particularly interested in that ascension part that you were talking about,
Mhm.
how we're all ascending, and in particular, what kind of wisdom did you gain from all of these different um, experiences that you've had about this ascension process?
Well, what I understand from my own journey, okay, is that, and what I've seen through the years is that many people are starting to look within, you know, and that's when things in my own life really, really switched, right? When I started to look within for answers instead of looking outside of me for answers, instead of looking outside of me for, life to, get its shit together or whatever. Sorry, I don't mean to curse, but right. I turn within and I ask for help. I ask for guidance, right? And then I trust what I get, no matter what, because when I don't trust what I get is when I end up having a lot of issues. I end up falling pretty far. And I have fallen pretty far many times in my life. I've gone through dark nights of the soul where I didn't think I was going to make it. But I think what I've learned about this ascension process, and I feel like right now, we're all really going through it as a planet, right? This whole planet is going through it. And you know, in order to ascend, right, and reach these higher vibrations of who we truly are, and each one of us has this within us, we have to do a lot of work around um, these aspects of ourselves that we may not be comfortable with, right? Or maybe we're not, it's not fun, right? So there's a lot of healing work that has to come with this type of path. And so I knew for myself that I had to really anchor into doing a lot of healing work and getting that out of my field. And I think that what I'm seeing now on the planet, right, because that's just a microcosm, what I'm doing in my life is a microcosm, right, of what's happening also all around. And in order for the planet and for the humanity to ascend, we have to look at what we've gone through, what we've done to others, how we've treated others, right? What's real, who people really are, right? I was told masks will come off. So many times my guides told me that. You're going to see who really is who's who. And people are going to be searching for truth. People are going to be looking for truth. And unfortunately, but that's just the way it is, I think, with human beings, we have to go through really hard things in order for us to change. And that's true of myself also. And I think that's true of many people. Like we don't really look and search within until we're up against something really challenging and we're on our knees. And I think that's what's happening now globally.
So
So I have a lot. Yeah.
when you've had these tough spots in your life,
Mhm.
I'm assuming the guidance that you're receiving helped you through that. What'd that look like?
Yeah. Well, what that looks like for me, they, my guides come through me in different ways, but one of the ways that they do that is I'm a trans channel. So I'll go in, I'll go within, and then they'll speak through me, and I have to record it in order to remember it because I don't remember it because I'm a trans channel. Um, but they will tell me, they'll give me guidance, they'll tell me about what's coming up or what's happening, but sometimes they don't tell us everything because,
No, really. They leave us in the dark. I mean, we have to make and
yeah.
do our own work. Oh, shoot.
Yeah, and that's the thing, even because, even when people have, when they're aware of their spirit's guides, their life is not a picnic, right? We still, people that are in touch with their spirit guides still have to go through the work, the really hard work. And so, the dark night of the soul that I went through, and I've gone through many in my life. I've gone through depressions after my awakenings, bad depressions, and then the worst one was not too long ago, so probably about 5 years ago, where I went through really, really horrific um, few months, and they had they had told me in my channelings about things that were going to happen in the future, right? And the way that they gave it to me, they didn't tell me the details about how what I was going to come up against, but so I had to go through that, and I understand that was part of my purification or initiation, or getting in touch with that ego part of me that was still maybe holding on, because once I started to become fearful is when they got, I'm going to say I just, that fear energy just spiraled down and down and down. And for me, it showed up in a way that I didn't anticipate and I didn't expect. And I felt like I got the rug pulled out from under me. Um, and so that only compiled and made it worse, I think. But I went through that and it was really hard. I didn't think I was going to make it. I didn't think I was going to come out of it, but I did. And afterwards, looking back at it and reading or listening to the guidance that I was giving, everything they told me was true. Everything they told me came true. So there was, it was my own humanness that came in and didn't trust the guidance I was getting. So I doubted what I was getting. And so I couldn't stand in that vibration of knowing that it, even though it looks like this in the earthly realm, I know that it's actually going to work out great and stay in that higher frequency. I wasn't able to do that. I started to doubt and fear and worry. And that's when, yeah.
So we're going to kind of wrap this up here with what do you think the future of humanity looks like? I mean, you've been shown the future, you've been told about it, through this ascension process. Where are we going?
Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, in my journey, I've experienced different types of understandings and knowings, and they show me things in ways that, like, sometimes in the dream state, I'll get premonitions. Um, but I think that we are actually, as humanity, we are evolving. Even though right now we're going through really hard times, I think we're going through the birth process, right? So, right before the birth of the baby, things get really hard and really, really, really painful. Um, but, I really have a lot of hope for us. As human species, that we are going to get through this and we're going to be really so much better than we ever thought possible. And what I've been shown and told is that we are getting ready for understanding that there's more to this world than we've been taught. And there's so much more going on than what we've also been taught. We're going to be eventually, we're going to know about beings that are from other dimensions, other planets, and we're going to understand right away who they are, right? And that we're all connected, that we're all family, that we're all one. And eventually, I think that we're going to have peace and we're going to be living in a much better world. I don't know that it's going to happen right away. They don't give me a time period, unfortunately. Um, and I hope, and I think that I am seeing, what I want to say is that each one of us, every day, we make decisions about what we want to focus on and what we want to bring into the world to make it a better place, right? So even though there's all kinds of things going on in the world, we can also, we can pray for the things that are going on in the world, but then we can also be focusing on what it is that we're here for, what we're doing, and how we're bringing the positive aspects of who we are into the world and making the world a better place. So that's what I try to
So
do.
during this birth process, are we guided? Are we protected from, with all of the other wisdom that's out there?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, i- i- we come into the human form and then we forget who we are, right? And then we really are very brave because we come here knowing that we're going to forget, right? Oh, yeah, I
Right.
can do that. I can do that. And then you load up your plate and you say, I'm going to take this on, I'm going to take that on, and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, we forget who we are. But then, what was your question again? I'm sorry.
Are we protected? Are we guided?
Yes, absolutely. We are always, always guided and protected, but we have to remember to ask. That's where I was going because
There we go.
we forget to ask, and I still forget to ask, you know? We're just, I think, as human beings, for some reason, it's so easy for us to fall back into that feeling of separation, right? Because it feels so real to us. But really, the true reality is that oneness, right? Where we're connected and we're always connected. I can tell you the thing that my guides have, I have over 700 channels that my guides have given me over the past 10 years. I can tell you they repeat it almost in every channel that they are always with me, that I am never alone, right? That is their number one. And that's not just to me, that's everybody. We're all connected. We're all connected to our guides, to God, to love, that love, that's who we truly are. And by asking for help, we get it. We just have to ask because we're a free will planet. We chose to come to a planet that where we have free will. We get to decide what we want to do and how we want to live our lives. So,
Catherine, one last thing. Um, what have I forgotten to ask you? What's the one thing you'd like to leave us with?
oh, wow. Let me think about this. The one thing I think that I want to say, the thing that's popping into my head is to have hope that this world is going to be a beautiful place and that we all contribute, every single one of us, that we're all special. Every single one of us is loved and adored by God, by our team that is on the other side, that are in the other dimensions, and that we're never alone, and that even the littlest things that you do in life have such a huge impact. Just praying for others, right? Smiling to people, saying hello to people that are working hard in the grocery store. I mean, just those little tiny things every day make a tremendous difference. And we have no idea how that makes a difference, but it all
Well,
does.
you have made a tremendous difference in all of our lives today. Thank you for this interview. And thank you, Catherine, for being with us today here on the Afterlife Files.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It was fun.
And those of you still watching, stick around. I've got a couple of interesting insights that Catherine brought up today that I'd like to explore a little bit more. So, see you on the flip side. There are two topics that Catherine touched on that I'd like to emphasize. The first are energy signatures. When encountering non physical beings, they can take on all different kinds of forms. However, each of them resonates with a different mix of energy, much like each person in the physical world has a different personality. Time and time again, those who explore the non physical worlds counsel us to trust our instincts on who it is you encounter. If you believe that glowing orb of light is Aunt Sarah coming to visit you, it more than likely is Aunt Sarah. Stop doubting yourself. The second topic she touched on while describing her early childhood was going out of body during a violent attack. I've interviewed many folks who, believing they were going to die or be severely and imminently wounded, jumped out of their physical body and had an OBE that led to a near death experience or a spiritually transformative experience, an NDE or an STE. This happens quite frequently. So if you wondered if it was possible, you can trust that it can be true. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Afterlife Files. We'll see you next time. Bye now.